Hey everybody, today I'm going to be creating this art journal page using the supplies from the Mixed Media Inspired subscription. I'm starting out with stamping with Lindy's Magical Powders. The easiest way to get magicals onto your stamp is dipping a dry paintbrush into the pot of magicals and then flicking the paintbrush over your stamp until you're happy with the coverage, grabbing a water bottle and spraying some water to activate the powders, and then go ahead and flip the stamp over and stamp it down on whatever surface you're working on. I'm working in a Dina Weekly Media original journal with the black cover on a watercolor page, and I'm going to just keep stamping until I'm happy with the coverage across my entire page. You can see that there is some imperfection in the stamping, which is exactly what I'm going for, a very abstract background. I'm going to do the exact same stamping technique as before, this time on white cardstock, and I'm going to take care to have a much crisper impression this time, as I will be using these stamped images later on in my focal point collage. Now it's time to colorize some collage tissue, and I am using Dina Weekly Media gloss sprays for this and a pipette. So I'm taking off the cap of the spray and grabbing some of this gloss spray with my pipette and then squirting it directly onto my collage tissue. And you can see that I'm rinsing my pipette in a jar of clean water between each color so I'm not contaminating the colors. The reason why I'm doing it this way instead of spraying is because I didn't want it to spray and be all over my tissue and then I wouldn't have enough room with my colors. I want it to be very marbled, very loose, and let these colors mix. So I'm going to continue putting down all these colors onto the black printed tissue. This is collage tissue, also by Dina Weekly. And I have the white piece here because I'm going to have extra gloss spray when I lift this up and dump all the extra off. So I'll be able to use that white printed sheet to sop up all of this extra gloss spray and not waste anything. So I've placed down my gloss sprays, I'm lifting up my sheet and I have it mostly covered, but just around the edges I'm placing it down into the extra gloss spray to make sure I have 100% coverage on my black printed tissue. And now I can do the exact same thing on my white printed tissue, just placing it down into the pool of gloss spray and kind of smushing it in there with my hands and making sure it has 100% coverage before I lift it up. Now you're going to see in a second that I'm stacking these sheets, and that's simply just for on camera. After I'm done filming and I pick up this extra gloss spray with a sheet of mixed media paper, I took all of these and separated them onto a shelf and let them dry 100%. If you leave them stacked like this, they will be glued together, so just know you need to separate it and let it dry before using it. Now we're going to go back to our page. It's dry from the stamping, and I'm using a scribble stick and a wet brush to do some loose background coloring around all of our stamped images. So I have a wet brush and I have a little bit of water I've sprayed on my craft sheet to the right, and I'm just taking that wet brush and brushing it against the scribble stick, and then I am applying the brush directly to the page to transfer that pigment and create a very loose watercolor-like shadowing around the edges of my page. This is a very subtle technique, and it's made even more so because I'm using a very light blue color to create this shadowing around the outside of my page. The color of this scribble stick and the names of all the other products that I'm using in this video are listed in the description below. While that is drying, I'm going to once again grab my Lupine stamp and this time use it with permanent black ink on some vintage book paper. And my gloss spray tissue is dry. This time I'm just going to use the white printed tissue, so I'm setting aside that black printed tissue for another day and another project. I ripped up the tissue into a bunch of small pieces, and then I'm just gluing them on in no particular order to create sort of a border or divide across the center of my page. And now I can bring in all of my Lupine flower stamping, both on the white cardstock and on the vintage book paper, and I cut all these out with my Fiskar micro snips. I'm placing down the flowers to create sort of a bouquet, or also something reminiscent of how they would grow naturally in the wild, in a field or along the side of the road. And I'm also taking care when I place these down that I don't have all of the book paper flowers together, all of the white flowers together. I want it to look like a very well composed bouquet of sorts. And after I'm happy with the placement, I'm gluing them all down, once again using distressed collage medium. Now I grabbed a piece of burlap fabric, which I had in my stash, and I'm also bringing back some smaller pieces of that same gloss spray we made earlier. I also grabbed a silver stencil chip that you seen just a second ago. I trimmed away some of the top and the bottom to make it a little bit more square versus rectangle. and I'm going to be placing that on top of a piece of our same gloss spray collage tissue. I chose the letter L because, of course, the name of these flowers is Lupine, and I will be using that sort of as my focal point, as this entire page is inspired around that flower. I'm putting a piece of collage tissue behind this stencil chip because I didn't want to have all the elements of the background be showing through. I wanted it to be very clear that this is an L, and so therefore I'm putting that tissue paper behind so the L is a solid purple. I placed that down onto my stencil chip with some distressed collage medium, and then I'm putting even more of that on the back of the collage tissue so I can place this down on top of my collage elements. And then, as I mentioned before, I'm just bringing back little tiny bits of the gloss spray tissue so that I can have pops of that purple color coming throughout my entire collage piece. Now it's time to start adding those finishing elements, and the first thing I grabbed was a Vintage Artistry Naturalist stickers, and I'm using a heart and also a yellow butterfly, which I originally placed more towards the upper corner of my page, but decided I didn't like that, so I lifted it up quick and stuck it on top of the flower so it looks like it's landing in this bouquet of flowers. For that last finishing touch, I grabbed a bottle of Stickles glitter glue, and I'm adding random dots around my collage for just a little bit of added sparkle. I absolutely love Stickles because it allows me to use glitter without the huge mess that we all know glitter comes with. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you were inspired and got ideas to use in your own artwork. I'd love to see what you're creating, so be sure to post a picture and tag us with #ArtJournalJunction. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving us a thumbs up, and also hit that subscribe button to let YouTube know you want to see more of our mixed media videos in the future.